pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm constitutional attorney Catherine Henry. For more than 20 years, I've been fighting for the underdog. But since COVID began, I've devoted all my time and efforts to fighting against government tyranny and educating and empowering the public. So welcome to our next episode of Restore Freedom Weekly.
Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers.
We'll be answering your constitutional questions live. So get ready to call in now.
Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner?
Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you are a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties.
Regardless of your role, call me, constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom. Hello, everyone. I'm constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, and it looks like I got to get centered on screen a little bit better here. Hello, welcome to the next episode of Restore Freedom Weekly, where we take your legal and constitutional questions and hopefully get those answered for you, or at least steer you in the right direction. I do want to let you guys know I'm doing something a little bit different, well, a lot bit different today. So just a few things before I put the call-in number on the screen. Again, welcome to those of you who are just joining us. If you have never found out about our channel or our show or anything like that before, I am constitutional attorney Catherine Henry, and I'm the host of the show. And all things Restore Freedom are basically a culmination of years of my work trying to empower we the people to take back our government and to teach all of you, as well as people, everybody from the average Joe to people that currently serve in government and people that are running for office, all about the law, the Constitution, and the proper role of government. So with that being said, it looks like one of our longtime participants here has a question, and it's perfect because I don't have to put the format of the question then. If you guys do have questions and you're unable to call in today and you want to put those in the live chat, please do so by putting the word question in all caps and then putting the rest of your question in normal capitalization. That would help me a lot. So I do want to say that we, and Blue Line Transparency, I am going to get to your question. It's obviously the first question here, so I'll answer that before I even throw the call-in number on the screen. But what I do want to do, I'm just checking things because, like I said, I'm doing things a bit differently today. Oh, I guess I should have started all. Start all. I don't know if I'm messing things up. Okay, so, failed to connect. Interesting. Oh, failed to connect. Okay, well, what we were trying to do is go live, I think in 3 different places at once. So I may have mentioned to you guys, I'm going to put a different screen on here. I may have mentioned to you guys that I made a couple of different new YouTube channels because of some censorship. Basically, there's nothing to censor in my most recent material for you guys. It is literally straight up information. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you are a raging liberal or a staunch conservative. It's literally reading to you the Constitution. It's giving you definitions of common legal terms. Again, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on or how far you might be at one end or the other. It's literally not objectionable. So with that being said, I mean, there's like literally no opinion in any of those videos that I've been sharing. And so at any rate, there's just a lot of lingering, there's just a shadow, if you want to fill in the remaining part of the word that is associated with that, the mainstream media platforms, and even Rumble to a certain degree, and I can't figure out why, but at any rate, there's just, if you look at statistically speaking, the number of followers versus the number of views, and it just doesn't add up. I mean, when you have, yeah, anyway, I'm not even going to go there, waste the time, but I'm trying something new. So I have 2 new channels that I mentioned last time, and I don't think I put them on the screen for you guys to see, but oh, please tell me I'm in the right. I have no idea if I'm in the, even in the, logged into the right one. So hold on a second here. Let me see. Oh, nope, I'm in the wrong one. That's awesome. Okay. Well, anyway, so I am not marked as an admin in the chat that I have open, because through OBS, it no longer allows me to type a response in here. I don't know why that changed a few months ago. Anyway, so I have it open separately, but because I have 3 YouTube channels now, it, I don't know, it just picks whichever one it thinks I'm signed into, even though I was in the correct one, my main YouTube channel, which is, youtube.com/restore freedom. But that's the one that's shadow banned. So anyway, we are live streaming there. That is the main one. That is where the live chat is coming from. But what I was trying to do was also live stream to Facebook, because we used to do that. And we have a lot of people that still follow on Facebook and things like that. So I was trying to get them included yet again. But it's giving me the OBS plugin that I used to try to get that connected. It says it's all connected, but then it says it failed to get it going on Facebook. So as far as I know, we're not live on Facebook. If anybody wants to confirm that for me, it wouldn't be my personal profile. It'd be the Restore Freedom, Restore Freedom with Catherine Henry page. But anyway, but we should be live on 2 separate YouTube channels, which is, like I said, the main one, which is youtube.com/restore freedom. And the secondary one, which you have to be careful about because you have to add the @ sign in, but youtube.com/@restore freedom live. So check that out. You could see, well, and you could maybe click on my, I don't know if it allows you to click on my, yeah, you should be able to click and see, because I commented testing on there a few minutes ago, because that's the one I apparently am logged into. So anyway, check that one out. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe there. And just try to spread the word, because I want to see if these 2 new channels, if they can get off the ground and have all the same great content. It's basically what I did is I just split it into 2. So all the ones where we're going live, they're going to be on Restore Freedom Live. So, and the ones that are 10 minutes or less, only 10-minute or less videos, and not even all of them, because there are some of the original ones from 6 years ago that just aren't that relevant today. They were about the petition, but just things that are not going to be helpful at all, one way or shape or form. Some of the Restore Freedom goodies, I'm not going to repost those videos. Anyway, so, but on that channel, everything else, everything that still has a content that would be valid today or helpful in any way, shape, or form, I'm trying to pull those videos over to the other channel, youtube.com/@restore freedom brief, which you have to be careful and put the @ sign there, because if you just put restorefreedom.com/restore freedom brief, it doesn't bring you there. I don't know why. I don't know why you don't need the @ sign for the main channel, but you do for the new channels. I don't know if that'll change at some point in time. This is not my area of expertise by any stretch of the imagination. But I'm trying to get us going. I'm trying to make it so that this is a viable platform so that we can continue to answer your questions of a legal and constitutional nature. So I did have a new thumbnail today. I experimented with some new things. I don't know if you guys saw that. You guys, I'd love to have you guys give me feedback on that. I know a lot of lead up into the show today, but wanted to put us all on the same page. Okay, so with that, I also want to let you guys know, because some of you may be asking. I haven't fully read through all the comments and things like that so far, but I did have surgery a week ago today, and they had, it turned out it was in the melanoma family. It's in the back of my head, which is why my hair is up. I know if Liberty Warrior gets on the chat today, he's going to say, I told you years ago to keep your hair down because viewers like hair down. They don't like hair up, blah, blah, blah. And I have listened to him since then. Okay. You could see my earlier videos from 2022 into 2023. My hair was always up because it's hot and I just hate dealing with it. And my hair never cooperates anyway. And once he told me that, I was like, fine. And I kept my hair down and I did some other things, changed the lighting according to his recommendations, but had surgery and I'm trying to keep it braided because, you know, I have to limit how much I brush my hair and do all that because I don't want to pull out the sutures that are in my head for another week. So Mike's been doing a good job of trying to help me get it shampooed and combed, and Emma's doing a good job of trying to braid it. It's a little hard, it's loose and it's half fallen out. But anyway, so I have noticed though that I have a little bit lingering effects from some of the anesthesia, that just words that normally would come to me are really not coming to me. I don't know, just, you know, a little bit lack of clarity of thought. So just bear with me. I'm a little bit more human today than I maybe otherwise am. But that, you know, at least you know I'm not a bot. So with that, I do see there's only one question, but yes, thank you, Blue Line Transparency. So Blue Line Transparency went ahead and instructed you guys, and I wish I could pin this. Can I pin this? No, I can't because I'm not the admin on the sign-in. Gosh. Anyway, okay, so I would love to be able to pin that comment there. Maybe I can do it over here. Hold on. Come on, let me pin it. Pin! Fabulous. Okay, so it's pinned now. I did that inside of OBS. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, if you guys, before we get started here, because I'm going to forget once the show really gets rolling and we answer those questions for you, please do me a favor. And I know it's kind of like double duty, but go ahead and get subscribed and sign up for notifications and hit that bell and all that fun stuff on the 2 new YouTube channels. Again, it's the same great content. I haven't pulled everything over because that is literally, I have not found a free service that will do that automatically. IFTTT made some promises to me and then lied. So it's pulling over for the most part things as they're happening. I'm posting all the new ones to the main YouTube channel and the Restore Freedom Brief, all those 10-minute or less videos I'm simultaneously posting there and to TikTok. I'm no longer going to be posting the short videos to Facebook because they'll get the Podbean version. So you'll get to listen to it on audio on Facebook, but I'm just not posting the videos because they weren't actually getting as many views as the audio versions anyway, which is kind of strange to me on a platform like Facebook, which is more about viewing than listening. But anyway, so that is all there for you guys. I think that's all of the housekeeping stuff, maybe-ish. With that being said, we're going to jump right in. And I guess what I do want to say, I do want to point out some of the content we have for you that we've recently released in case you haven't seen it. So in the recent weeks, I had shared with you the U.S. Constitution Starter Series. I think most of you have heard about it if you haven't already seen it. And that's literally the starter series. I literally just read to you the words of the U.S. Constitution. Every single boring or exciting word and everything in between. I literally just read it to you and had the words on the screen. Okay, so no opinions, no debate, nothing. I've had a few other videos in between here and there that are on little topics. And then I did the, like I talked about what uniform codes are, because we had some questions come up about that. The steps of a civil case, circuit courts in the U.S. Court of Appeals, how to find your city's laws online, court opinions and how to read them, standards of proof, what are they? The standards of proof to get an arrest warrant, to make an arrest, to continue an investigation. That's even before you have enough to make an arrest, to charge a case, for a prosecutor to be able to continue forth and actually charge a case, to win in a civil case, to win in a high stakes civil case, and to win in a criminal case. So anyway, those are very important. Again, all of those are in 10-minute or less chunks. Then I went and talked about the 98 most common general legal terms, not just in a court situation, but just things you might need to know. I talked about what a deed is, for example, things like that. And then talked about the most common civil case terms, the most common appeals case terms, and the most common criminal law terms. So all of those were already shared. You've already, had access to those. Maybe you've already seen them. If you haven't, go ahead and watch those. I do have in each of those where I'm talking about definitions. Yes, it's in a sense, it's kind of like reading the Webster's dictionary to you. I did not get the definitions out of Webster's. It was out of a publication put out by the State Bar of Michigan. But again, it's not opinionated. Every now and then I give you my opinion on a definition, but by and large, I did not do that. I just wanted to give you the information. So regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, you have the information, you know what those things are. You can listen to it now, you can listen to it later. It's just one of those things that you can be playing in the background at work or while you're out pulling weeds in your yard, that kind of thing. Okay. So even when you're sitting on your dock fishing, if you just want to learn a little bit of something without having to do too much thinking, it's something, the repetition will help. So watch it once on this channel, which the main channel, Restore Freedom channel on YouTube, and then go ahead and follow it up with watching it at the Restore Freedom Brief channel on YouTube. So anyway, check all those out. And then this week I have scheduled to release the new series of the U.S. Constitution called U.S. Constitution in Plain English. And I was able to break that down into 4 parts. Let me just double check that all 4 parts are in fact, did I please? Yes. Okay. It is 4 parts and they're all completed and scheduled and ready to go, starting this week and going on into next week. So by the end of next week, those will be all done. There's only 4 parts though. And then I'm going to talk about the Florida Constitution next. And that's just like the plain reading, but no, I'm not going to read every single word in the Florida State Constitution because I would put myself to sleep. There is just some stuff like the schedule of when and how each piece is implemented and all that. No way, absolutely not. But there's a little bit more important things that you guys need to be aware of. And even if you don't live in Florida, it would be helpful for you to hear the words of a state constitution so that you know what you'd be looking for in your own state constitution. So keep an eye out for that series. It will be coming live to you, not live, but it'll be published maybe by August 7th, if not August 13th is when I'll start the Florida State Constitution series. So with that, I'm going to jump back in. I saw the question that Blue Line Transparency asked. So Lane Myers had a hearing today. Okay, so Lane Myers' hearing today challenges his probation conditions, including don't engage in activities reasonably expected to cause others to harass the victims, and no contact with YouTubers. Interesting, considering that I know there's several First Amendment YouTubers who are attorneys, and I'm sorry, you're going to tell someone they can have no contact with an attorney? Let's just start with that. Being told that somebody is not allowed to contact me, I'm not a co-conspirator. I've done nothing wrong. It's not like we're conspiring to commit any crimes together. That's a different story. But to preemptively tell someone you cannot talk to a specific class of people. Now, again, even with any people whatsoever, I actually don't even know what the question is. You said there's a question. I don't know what the question is, so I'm kind of going off on a tangent and giving you some response because I didn't realize, maybe I did realize, but I didn't ever see it in writing yet until just now, what some of the probation conditions were for Lane Myers. Clearly a First Amendment violation, and he should bring it all the way up. to the state Supreme Court, and then to the US Supreme Court. Absolutely, absolutely. Even if he has to do it on his own, there is a process for that. He can follow the process that I used when I brought my case to the US Supreme Court less than 12 months ago. So anyway, regardless of that, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of civil rights attorneys who would be all over this in representing him with this. But if not, there's at least, you know, the outline laid out for him. But yes, telling someone that they cannot engage in activities reasonably expected to cause others to harass the victims. That's one piece. And then having no contact with YouTubers is another piece. Now let's handle the first one first. So the phrase "don't engage in activities reasonably expected to cause others to harass the victims." First of all, what is the definition of harassment? Because that has been at issue. If I remember correctly, again, there's a huge if on that, okay? If I remember correctly, that state has an overly broad definition of harassment that puts a lot of things that are not illegal, or let me put it this way, that are protected properly by the Constitution. Somehow some of those things are now covered and made criminal by this harassment statute, if I remember correctly. So again, I don't have the wording of the statute in front of me, but it just seems that I remember it being overly broad and including a lot of things that are not true harassment. Okay. So if you are asking a lot of questions, if you are annoying someone, that's not harassment. Especially if you are annoying someone in the course of their official duties, when that person, let's just narrow it right down to that person is in government. They are in public office and you are communicating with them or about them in their official course of conduct. That is directly protected in the US Constitution in the First Amendment. And if anybody needs that refresher, I'm going to get it word for word for you because I do not want to miss a single syllable. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So that, I'm going to pause that thought just because the one person who can get through during the show is texting me. And apparently he forgot I'm on my show, because that would be Mike just texting me about the fact that I need a new computer monitor. So not about the show. So I think we're still good with the show. I'm going to keep going with my line of thought. So at any rate, you have multiple things implicated there. When you have a court order saying don't engage in activities reasonably expected to cause others to harass the victims. There's a lot of pieces to unpack there. But if we're talking about people having the right to be free from harassment, yes, people have the right to be free from harassment. That is absolutely a thing. But what is harassment? Well, let's say you have a public official. We'll take it about my case, okay? This has nothing to do with Lane for a minute, okay? This is my case against the city of Ormond Beach. Take that back. We'll do the Allegan County case where I was violently and illegally arrested on Election Day in 2020 when I was serving as an attorney, okay? So the prosecuting attorney, the chief prosecuting attorney, the elected official, was behind it from the beginning. She wasn't the highest one behind it. It was the attorney general and the governor who were behind it, but that's beside the point. The attorney general, or excuse me, not the attorney general, the chief prosecuting attorney, Myrene Koch, was very clearly had already, before I ever showed up on scene, had already given the sheriff's deputies permission, using air quotes there, to arrest me. Right? Even though I hadn't even shown up yet. I ended up being arrested illegally for trespassing on public property during the time it was open to the general public, mind you. But in the portion of that property that was open to the general public, I wasn't going behind closed doors. I wasn't even in a building. But I digress. So she had conspired ahead of time to tell them, like, you have permission. I'm gonna rubber stamp this thing. I want you to go ahead and arrest this attorney when she shows up to talk to you about the rights of the people that you're already violating. Let's go ahead, bait her down here, and then we're going to give you permission to arrest her. Okay. So when she did that, she was in the wrong. And there's video on my YouTube channel. Because I went live on Facebook, it cut out. I went live on YouTube. I went live at various parts later on. And then my dear friend, Brian Bodie, after, I think it was the day afterwards, he combined all the videos together, including 2 from other people that we had gotten. And he spliced them together at the same time. I put them together in one master video so you can see the whole thing start to finish. And you could see that I wasn't doing anything illegal, and I was explaining what the law was as I was waiting to talk to the officer, never thinking that I was going to be arrested, but regardless, the law was the law and we were following it. They were not. So anyway, you can clearly hear one of the deputies say to me, well, you know, the prosecuting attorney already gave me permission to arrest you. And I'm like, okay, great. I didn't know it was a female at the time. So I said, well, he's on the hook too, but that doesn't absolve you. You're still going to be on the hook for abuse of process and malicious prosecution, false arrest, all kinds of things. So the thing is, though, that prosecuting attorney then continued to make my life a living hell for 2 years. 2 years. And had 4 other people in her office working on my case who don't know the law, don't know the Constitution, don't know a single court rule in all of Michigan. But anyway, continued to make my life a living hell. I publicly made videos about the situation, okay? I talked about the case. I shared my documents. I kept filing motions for declaratory relief and motions to get the discovery, motions to compel discovery, motions, all kinds of motions I filed in the district court. And when the district court judge kept not doing the right thing, then I would file an appeal with the circuit court and then file an appeal with the Court of Appeals. And I kept going up and I was sharing all these documents and putting them right on my website and doing videos talking about the documents and everything. And I have all the receipts, as the kids say these days. I had all the proof. And I put every single piece of proof in my pleadings and in my exhibits. And I put it on the website and you guys could see every single thing. Besides, it's a court record. Same thing for Lane Myers. Everything there is a public, it's about his interaction with a public employee. And if you FOIA'd any of the contact, if it was a FOIA-able thing, something that's recorded, it would all be FOIA-able. There's nothing protected or exempt in that situation, just like with me, okay? So there's some similarities there. So if you think about it though, I very clearly told people, if you want to help, if you want to get involved, tell the sheriff's department that this is wrong, that they need to drop this case. Tell the prosecuting attorney they need to drop this case. Talk to whoever, put the pressure on. And I was telling people to take action as a citizen, be engaged as a citizen, utilize what we see laid out in the Declaration of Independence and certainly in the First Amendment, but where we, the people, have the ultimate control and authority. That's actually Article 4, Section 4, right? A Republican form of government guaranteed to us by the U.S. Constitution, where we, the people, retain ultimate control and authority, and we have not only the right, but a duty and obligation to oversee our government officials and all that they do, and to make sure that we're communicating with them and we're sharing the story. We're sharing the message with others as well, okay? These days, YouTube is one of the best ways to share that information if you're not shadow banned, okay? But regardless, that's why, 1/100th, of not even of the people that are subscribed to my channel are even watching this video now. But you know what I mean, right? So social media is one of the biggest ways that we get our word out as the average citizen who's trying to engage in the job that media is supposed to do, but media is all bought off, which we all know. Okay, so with that being said, in my case, I asked people to do that, which is protected, right? Had I taken it a step further and said, okay, this is Myrene Koch's personal cell phone number. This is her home address. This is where her children, I don't know if she has children. Let's assume she has children. This is where her children go to school. This is where they play t-ball. Okay, if I had said that kind of stuff and said, okay, guys, you know what to do. This is a big, bad, awful person. You guys do what needs to be done. And I put that personal information out there. That would be true doxing. That would be true cyber harassment. I don't give a crap what law says what. We all know that that kind of BS is wrong. You need to hold government officials accountable in their governmental official capacity, right? And you go to their office, you call their office number, you call their supervisors if they have one, you call the people that work for them, you email, you stand on the street corner with a sign that says the mayor or the prosecuting attorney or this or that, whoever it is, whatever government official is doing something wrong. You know, in my community right now, there's this huge contention over the mayor's race. And there's a lot of signs going up about our mayor's name is Jason Leslie. And so liar Leslie, I think, are the only two words that are on these posters that are being, put up all over town. And they're big and I think they're red and it catches your attention. Liar Leslie or Lion Leslie. I don't even know, right? The whole point is they're trying to say our mayor is a liar. And it's not personal. Yeah, it's verging on a personal attack, but quite frankly, that by itself, although it doesn't say everything it needs to, I mean, in that sense, it's a very small window. It's not like a YouTube video where somebody just went on and for 3 seconds said, Jason Leslie is a liar, and they had the option of explaining more. I have a feeling whoever is doing the signs would gladly share with you all the information that they have to support their opinion or the fact, whatever the case may be, that Jason Leslie is lying. Now, if they're talking about really personal stuff, I can't even think of anything, okay? But, how many women he dated in college or something like that, and he lied about that, or I don't know, just stupid stuff like that does not matter. Should anybody be a liar and be in government? Quite frankly, no. But if it's of a personal thing and it doesn't directly impact his work as a mayor, that would be crossing a line. But if you're concerned that somebody is a habitual liar in their personal life, then clearly that is a concern for what they will bring to the table in their profession or in that role in government, right? So, you got to use common sense here. But harassing somebody, calling somebody's, now calling somebody's office phone 100 times in a day, that's not okay. I mean, that's literally going to stop them from doing their job. Calling them once a day, every day, that's not going to stop them from doing their job. That's going to annoy them. And if you're not threatening them in any way, if you're just like, I want to get to the truth, I want you to give me the answers. I have filed a FOIA request and it's your job to fulfill that and you are denying my request, or whatever the case may be. But if you have a purpose for calling them, or, let's say there's always a new thing, maybe it's somebody like your mayor or whatever, who you just constantly are seeing decisions made. The city manager of Belding 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago, I used to go to every single city council meeting because the woman was violating the law left and right. And so it was a new thing every week. I would have at least 3 new laws that she violated that I would need to speak on during my 3 minutes of public comment time. And I would say, okay, you violated MCL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and whatever. And I'd itemize it, and I'd say, this is how you can fix it, though. And I would tell the city council what they could do to fix that situation. And so even though I was there at every single meeting, and I was talking to my government officials about the situation, it wasn't harassment. I wasn't calling, her name was Meg, I wasn't calling Manager Meg, 10 times a day to tell her what a loser she was. I hardly talked to her directly at all anymore. I heard her own words during public meetings. I saw the documents that she was providing. I saw what she was doing to citizens in my community. I saw it with my own eyes. I had the information I needed, and I shared exactly what I thought of it in that forum, in the appropriate forum, and sometimes communicated that to, city council, who had the reason why is because in that community, they are the ones that hire and fire the city manager, right? So regardless, that's appropriate. I did not ever go to her home and harass her. I didn't call her 10 times a day to tell her she was doing a shitty job as city manager. I didn't, try to identify where her kids went to school and then blast it out to people like, hey, we should go. No. That kind of stuff is not okay. So I think you guys get the point there. So that would be something that would be covered by this, that would be, an acceptable condition of probation. But again, causing others to harass the victims, again, it depends on what you mean by that. If you are out there, that's where it gets a little murky, right? Because you can't really cause others to do much. Again, if you're giving the personal information and that kind of thing, I mean, that's where it's the issue. But in general, if you give information and you say, you guys know what to do, this is not right, let's engage as citizens and take our country back and tell them that this kind of stuff is not acceptable, because if they're willing to do it to me, they're going to do it to you too. And so if you have people pissed off at that and they start making calls and sending emails and all that, that's what we're supposed to be doing. For goodness sake, that is literally what citizens are supposed to be doing. Now, if somebody gets carried away, the day I was arrested, the only reason, and I was arrested and they were going to take me to jail, and it was in the height of COVID. So I was afraid because I knew they were not following the law. They were not following the Constitution. I knew they were going to put a mask on me despite my medical exemption. They were going to try to jab me with something. They were going to do all kinds of stuff, and it was not okay. But regardless of all that, I don't even know where I was going to go with that. Dang it. I had a good train of thought and it derailed. But, so I know that day that because I was live streaming when it started, and then a couple of other people were live streaming, and then people close to me saw the live streaming and came down. They came to the location where I was. A few people came. Eventually my husband got there. He worked, 45 minutes away. So as soon as somebody called him and told him what was going on, because he was at work, he wasn't watching YouTube, he drove down there as fast as he could. And so he got there later out of everybody else. But, at any rate, it was not only showing people showing up to the scene, but it was people, you guys, people just like you who were just watching my YouTube channel, who were saying they're going to take her to jail. They're saying they're arresting her, and they're watching them arrest me. And they were like, oh my gosh, they were calling the jail. They were calling the sheriff. They were calling all the people that they could think of, the prosecuting attorney's office. I had people flooding the jail with phone calls. I don't even know who they were. I don't even know what they were saying, because I was the one in handcuffs. I clearly was not coordinating that. That was literally while I was being arrested. People, you all saved me from further torture and torment, because even though my case then dragged on for 2 years and I have physical, issues from the contusions and the bruises and things and the cuts and stuff they left me with that day, not to mention the PTSD, it could have been a lot worse, but they were forced to let me go. And in fact, before I left the scene with my little ticket in hand to show up to court, one of the cops came back over to me and said, could you please do us a favor? One literally worded it like that, like I owed him anything. could you please do us a favor and tell people to stop calling the jail? Tell them that you are not at the jail and to stop calling the jail because we are getting overrun with phone calls right now. I mean, that's the way our government is supposed to work. If you see something happening that's clearly wrong, you do something about it appropriately. And in that moment, that might have meant 500 people making a phone call to the sheriff's office or to the jail. And that's what it took to get something done. So was that harassment of the jail staff? Absolutely not. It served its purpose. And I don't know who did it. I never asked anybody to do that. So there is a fine line, right? So again, as far as being responsible though for other people's behavior, had somebody chosen to take it a step further and follow the sheriff around, you know, in his off hours and stalk him and his wife and his kids and, whatever, share his personal information, that's not okay. And that had nothing to do with my case. That would be harassment. But I couldn't be responsible for what those people were doing, right? So again, that wording is, again, I don't know, it's really bad wording. But saying he has no right to have contact with YouTubers. Really? Because YouTubers, I mean, there's the YouTubers that do makeup tutorials. Is he not allowed to talk to them? Does he then have to go to every person he meets, every person he already knows and every person he meets, and say, I'm so sorry. Can you please clarify for me before I ever introduce myself? Are you a YouTuber? And what exactly does that mean? Because I don't know what the wording in the court order is for his probation violations or his probation conditions. But is it actually worded as YouTubers? Because is a YouTuber, by definition, someone who utilizes YouTube? My dad watches a lot of stuff on YouTube. He doesn't post videos. Would the court say he's a YouTuber? YouTuber is not defined by law. So if it's not defined in this order, then it is really open-ended, and that's a problem. Even so, let's say it makes clear that it's only talking about people that post content on YouTube. So does that mean that if I don't know anything about Lane, okay? Let's say, for the sake of argument, he's married, he has a brother, he has a sister, he has a mother, a father, an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, a grandpa, and 10 neighbors, 10 coworkers, and 100 people he goes to church with. Let's say that you generally surround yourself with people who are like-minded. I mean, for the most part, right? It doesn't always work with family, but in a large respect, that's how it works out. So let's say they're not only active in, protecting their freedoms and believe in the Constitution and all that other stuff, right? But they are actual, true, engaged citizens. So 3/4 of his family, again, between his kids, his wife, his brother, his sister, his mom, his dad, his aunt, his uncle, his grandma, his grandpa, 3/4 of them have their own YouTube channels. Some of them only have 1 follower. Some of them have 10. A couple of them have over 100. One of them has over 1,000, okay? Doesn't matter though. Is YouTuber defined in this order? And even if it is, and let's say they say, well, YouTuber is somebody who posts content and has over 1,000 followers on YouTube. Okay, great. So does that mean then if, 1/4 of his family meets that definition that he's no longer allowed to have contact with his own frickin' family simply because they have a YouTube channel and some content? Are you frickin' for real? And then you apply that to his friends, his neighbors, his coworkers, and his church? What if the church my church has a YouTube account? My church has a YouTube account. My pastors have YouTube accounts. A lot of the leadership has their own YouTube accounts and Insta and all that other stuff I'm not cool enough to know about or care about. Leadership has their own social media, trust me. I think everyone does. They have at least some form of social media that they post on, but certainly I know for a fact our primary and secondary pastors are on YouTube. You should check them out. Grace Life Beachside is our church. I have no idea what the YouTube handle is, but interesting content. Regardless, does that mean if Lane Myers lived here and went to my church, he would no longer be able to go to my church? Because that would be contact with a YouTuber? So now we're implicating the freedom of religion. Are you freaking serious? So there's a lot of things implicated. You have, like I said, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom, the right to petition our government for a redress of grievances. And the one I have skipped over is the right of the people peaceably to assemble, which is, an often ignored one, but it's one that's so important because they're saying he can have no contact with an entire group of people that's even much broader than the people who are doing the same things he's doing. But even if it was a narrowly tailored order that said something about YouTubers who are considered First Amendment auditors. Okay, YouTubers who are considered First Amendment auditors. Okay. Still, they have the right to peaceably assemble. Their mere assembly is not a crime and cannot be considered a crime. If you are assembling in a way that is on somebody else's private property, that would be trespassing. It's not the assembly that's illegal, that's being on somebody else's property. If you are assembling in a way that while you're there, you are planning on how to injure or unalive someone, that would be conspiracy to kill, right? That is a crime. That is inherently wrong. It has nothing to do with the fact that you're assembling. It just means that multiple people are gathered to do something that's inherently wrong, right? There's a bunch of other examples, right? If you assemble, how about in 2020 after the George Floyd thing happened? And I'm not saying anything bad or good or indifferent about that situation, but regardless of whether it was right or wrong, what happened in Minneapolis, the actual incident, right? Then you had all the riots that happened afterwards. And I saw with my own eyes watching as Leon Hendricks, who had been at my property, my home, doing an interview for a client that I was representing who was fired for defending the Second Amendment as a law enforcement officer. But anyway, I had just seen him recently. And then there he is, downtown Grand Rapids at 2 a.m. doing a live newscast that is never live at 2 a.m. because from the newsroom, they could look out their glass walls and see what was happening downtown in Grand Rapids. The rioting, the fires being set, the cars being destroyed, the businesses where the front to the businesses are being smashed and people are going in and they're raiding and they're stealing, they're looting, the whole 9 yards. Just the fact that you have many people assembled together does not mean that that's a First Amendment protected activity. No, that is not peacefully assembling. That is committing violent acts. That is committing acts of theft and larceny and robbery and you name it. That's not okay. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about saying point blank, you just can't have contact with people that are not even alleged to be committing crimes with you. You just can't contact people just because we don't want you to. That is a load of BS and is totally unconstitutional. So lots of time on that. But Lane Myers should absolutely fight that. If you guys can keep me in the loop on that, let me know in the next show how that all goes. That would be great. Okay, so, okay, I said all of that, and then it was just about Foshin and one other specifically. Okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It does, now we have the thoughts on what would happen if a judge does that. Oh my gosh, I don't even have it in front of me. Hold on, guys. Hello.
Good morning, Catherine. This is Blue Line Transparency.
And I just saw your update that after I went into all that about the hold on, let me change my screen here. I got so many oh, look at that. Our chat isn't showing up. Well, whatever. Fun times. Anyway, I just saw your update that it was just Foshin and one other YouTuber that he's prohibited from talking to. But again, that's still not, oh, now all of a sudden it's, okay. Anyway, apparently only one person's comment is making it to my screen, even though I can see there's a crap ton of comments. So anyway, I see that you had said that on there, and you have probably, yes, you have other ones, you have other questions I haven't even looked at yet. So I'm going to go ahead and shut up and let you start talking, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I figured I'd call. So it limits the characters in YouTube that you can write. So I went back and instead of typing Foshin and reluctant prophet, I just put YouTubers, and then you went off and you're not seeing my latest comment. But so I figured I'd call. It'd be easier that way.
Yeah, and so, I was just seeing that as you did. But you know what, regardless, I think it's important that we know, because quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if there's not judges out there doing similar stuff and just saying you can't have contact with XYZ people or whatever. And the same, I want people to have those same thoughts in mind, right? Do the same analysis about, is this right? Is this wrong? Now, in his particular case, saying that he can't contact Foshin and another particular YouTuber, and for those of you who don't know, Foshin this is a public service, and you know, he's on YouTube, he's on Facebook, etc., whatever, all the things. I think he's currently out of state right now, but anyway, he and I are from the same state and currently now live in the same state. But we and Mr. Catherine Henry, who just signed in, is also a friend of Foshin's, but and they've played hockey together. But anyway, if you know, again, I haven't seen the documents since they were shared with me a year ago or so. But from what I remember, he was ordered before there was ever a guilty, you know, a finding of guilt on the record. When he was just being charged, there were already pre-trial conditions put on him, and that included not being able to have contact with Foshin. And as far as I know, from what I saw, there wasn't even an allegation that they committed any kind of crime, but rather just that they were shedding light on the situation and they were assisting him essentially in his defense. So am I missing something there?
No, you're spot on. They want to silence a point of view. They want to control the narrative, and that's like, I mean, they're going to the extreme to do that right now. I mean, we're just getting started. You think because he's on probation, we're still right in the thick of it.
Right.
I think I'm next to be on his ban list that he can't speak to me, and then now there's more people that are becoming interested in it more. Just within the last week, there's probably half a dozen, you know, well-known activists that are either speaking to him or they're trying to work that out with being able to speak to him. Right now, at least as far as the jail, he's in jail, if you weren't aware, with no bond again, and they want to send him to prison on August either 10th or 11th. I wrote down the 11th, but he was mentioning the 10th, so it's one of those days. They're alleging, I think, more than a dozen counts here of basically that he can't, that he violated certain conditions, and a lot of them are that catch-all one they have. I think he had 15 conditions, right? And then one of them is that catch-all that you can't do anything that causes other people to harass somebody, right? Well, what does that even mean, right? I mean, his probation officer basically was telling him, you can't say the two names, right? The name of the prosecutor that prosecuted him for booing at town hall while everybody else was clapping, and his wife, who is some kind of official at the Arizona law school, right? Because apparently other people were sending emails that were annoying to them. Perhaps some of them were harassing or threatening. I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen any, but I've seen nothing. I've watched hundreds of hours of his stuff, and I've seen nothing related to threats. In fact, I've seen him say, "I don't want you to threaten. If that's what you do, just please leave my channel. We have nothing in common, right? I want to do this peacefully. I'm just speaking about it." Right. So right now he's in the jail. Get back to that real quick. He's in the jail, and he's not allowed to speak to his own mother, to his own sister, to his own family. They're selectively, the jail is. And I imagine some of that is running right through the prosecutor, right? Because I mean, they're to the point where he just published a video last night from the jail through the help of somebody else, where he's like hour 4, minute 14, second 30, whatever, in a video on a 10-hour live stream or something that he did recently, I guess, where I don't even think the video's up anymore. Apparently they came in and handcuffed him and got on his computer right in front of him and started deleting shit, right? So apparently they went through like to the microseconds, right? To you can on YouTube on the playback, you can change the speed to, like a quarter of the speed and things like that. And that's still not fast, like slow enough, like to catch him typing. He says he can type 60 words a minute. He's typing lawsuit, right? He's like, look, guys, I'm challenging my conditions. Here's how I'm going to do it. And he's just broadcasting everything that he's about to do. I mean, they're going to get the following anyway. He's not afraid of it. He wants them to go ahead and watch if you want, right? So he's typing lawsuit into his Google browser. And one of the suggestions pops up as he types the W is this woman's Arizona law school. It says her name and it says law school. Right. And it happened so fast, he's not looking at it. He's typing, he's already going to the S for lawsuit. Well, they slow motion that to the point where the human eye can't even see it. And they think they're going to take a screenshot and they're going to send him to prison over that. Another one is apparently this woman's victim's name is the same as other people. There's an astronaut that shares the same name, named Shannon Walker. Right. There's a rugby player with this somewhere in Australia. I mean, maybe he's kind of dancing on the line there, but I mean, can they really stop him from just using that word? You can't say Shannon Walker. You can't say Matt Walker.
No, that's bullshit. That'd be like
and they want to send him to prison for I don't know how many years.
Right. That's like saying to me that I can't say Myrene Koch, the prosecutor in my case, or Deputy Langlois, or the other doofuses that were involved that day, or the name of the township clerk who was the cause of the whole thing, just saying, I just don't want her here. Like, it's not your frickin' property, you psycho, but, I said their names plenty of times on public video. Because that's how you hold government officials accountable. If you are a government official and you're doing wrong, then you're doing wrong. Now, I will say that, if I remember correctly, because again, you guys got to forgive me. I don't want to keep beating the dead horse about that, but it's been over a year since I reviewed the documents. But if I remember correctly, at the time that the charges came, he had only sent her like 1, maybe 2 emails. And I could see 1, maybe 2 emails. And think of it this way. She just works at the public university's law school. And I don't even know what her position is. But if you work in a law school, then the notion is, the thought behind it is, well, you're all for justice. If not, get the hell out, right? But especially if you work in government at all, but especially even beyond that, if you work in the court system, if you, as an extension of that, if you're involved in the educating of the next generation of attorneys to be working in the court system, you should be all about justice. And so if you send out a plea to somebody and say, hey, listen, this is, I know you work at ABC Law School, and normally you just deal with things with the law school, but you work for a government entity, and your spouse, Mr. Walker, has done XYZ to me, and it's totally uncalled for. It's violating my rights. And I would ask that you talk to him about it, because clearly your family has some sort of values to pursue justice. And, you understand the concept of the Constitution and what the law is supposed to be about. And so I would just ask that you talk to him, try to beat some sense into this guy, because, you're somebody in a position who could. I could see an email like that happening. I don't remember the details of what he emailed her, or exactly why. And because she's she works at the law school, if she's not really engaged in a role that has anything to do with his case, beyond, one, maybe two, to have a follow-up email, beyond one or two emails about it, that would be harassment, because has nothing to do with her job. The link is purely personal, and it has nothing to do with her functions in government. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's
I believe, I was trying to look it up. I believe she is like a special projects director or something with that ring to it.
Right, but
and ultimately, it's not even like, I think you're kind of spot on. I think he had sent like an email or two. I believe I heard that there was like one voicemail, and he pretty much did what you just described, but he uses a little colorful language. Says like, your crooked ass husband prosecutor is doing XYZ. But regardless, that doesn't make it a crime, right? And it was just a few times, and then there was pushback, and then it turned into, well, she's saying, I need to get a protection order because I'm scared this guy's going to come and hurt me, right? And then so he shows up to a hearing, and now he's going to talk about it. He's going to talk about, well, hold on a second, let's see what this woman wrote to get the TPO that we're about to go challenge. She wrote this. Let's fact check it. That's not what happened. Let's play it back. Now she, she's a semi-public official, and now he's questioning her particularly for lying on a TPO. And then get into court, and in the middle of the hearing, there's video of this. The husband is in the background, like interrupting the hearing from the gallery, saying, no, honey, tell the judge this, tell the judge that, and like she's looking back there, like judge asks a question, she looks back to like get his approval, like whether I should nod yes or no, right? And he's calling all this out, saying, look at. So now, then it escalates, and now he's talking about, well, hold on a second, we got you in this number of lies, and they go through and talk about, look, here's exactly what she says, here's the proof that something different happened, right? And it just escalated from there. But they're charging him not for emails or anything that he did in particular to her. This woman is watching. They're watching, a 10-hour live stream in slow motion, trying to say, how can we send him to prison, right? They're stalking him at this point. Like, there's no, like, he's not calling anybody. He's never done that. Everybody, I want you to call and threaten him. If anything, it's, you can call, look, they're trying to send me to prison for, typing in Google lawsuit, and the automated Google result says her name on there for, they're going to call in, I guess this is going to happen on August 10th or 11th, I believe. They're going to call in like an expert witness to talk about what frame rate that happened at, like 1/30th, of a second or something. Right. And this is how they want to send him to prison for this. But like they're legitimately, and he's on no bond over this right now.
You're saying in his defense is bringing on an expert to talk about the frame rate. That's they would have. Okay. So yeah. And the thing is, I will say that, if you're kind of confirming that she didn't really have anything to do with the initial, like there was nothing in her scope of employment other than just merely working at a law school that really had any connection to what his beef with the government was, right? With what the husband had been doing. Then, like I said, one, maybe two emails, maybe would be stretching it. But again, it does depend on what's being said. And I will say that it's possible that I had seen the original emails. I don't think I did. I think I only saw the court documents themselves. So it's hard for me to say, but words do matter. And, so we have two different realms, right? We have the realm of Karens who think the world revolves around them, and everything you do, say, think, feel, whatever, I mean, you got to conform to what they want, because if you offend somebody in any kind of way, you've committed a crime and they're going to come after you, right? Then on the other side of things, you have the people that are, pretty much anarchists and just don't give a shit, and they think they could say and do whatever, and then they try to hide behind the First Amendment and say, well, it's the Constitution, it's a free country, I can say whatever I want. And it's like, no, the truth lies somewhere in the middle here. Because, and we've talked about this a lot with all kinds of rights, our rights don't just end where somebody else's begin, but there's an intersection of our rights. It's like a Venn diagram. And I have my hands are not big enough to show you guys a proper Venn diagram, but there's an overlapping nature to my rights and your rights, or Lane's rights and the prosecutor's rights. In fact, I'm going to, as dorky as it is, I'm going to show on the screen what we have, because this occurs to me, that there's actually, oh, these are definitely not circles anymore. I had to make it more like ovals. So there's 4, we'll just call them circles, guys. You have Lane. You have the prosecutor husband here. You have his wife. Oops, wrong direction. And you have the public. Let's not forget the public has rights too. So all 4 not only intersect with each other, which is why I no longer had circles here. They not only intersect with each other, but they all intersect with each other. And then there's a spot in the middle where they all overlap, but A overlaps B, and C overlaps D, and all of that. So my point is, you have to consider a lot of things going on with each stage of things. And the initial emails and contact that Lane had with the, and what are their names again?
Shannon Walker is the wife, and Matthew Walker is the prosecutor there. And I wanted to throw in there that I think there's a polarizing difference between talking about somebody on your personal platform and talking to somebody, sending an email. And then I don't know where that would intersect. If you're saying I want other people to call, I don't believe he really even said that hardly ever, unless he's talking about a court case.
Yeah. So that,
but
right. And so
there's a difference in talking about and to.
There is a very big difference, and this is where I really wish I had the actual emails, any and all, like that started the whole thing. I would love to see what those are. If anybody has them, can get their hands on them, they should be part of public record somewhere. Send them to me, and I'll give you my analysis, my 2 cents for what it's worth. But I can see both sides. I could see a situation where, definitely from his perspective, I've been there. So if I had known, for example, that Myrene Koch in my case had a husband who, worked at University of Michigan Law School, and, he was high enough up that I felt like, goodness, he's knowledgeable about things about justice and the law, and maybe he could talk some sense into her, I might very well have reached out and said, hey, is there anything you can do here? Because I know it's not your job, but if you're interested in justice and this is happening with somebody who you share a home with, I mean, there's kind of a problem here. I could see that I could have possibly been in that realm of reaching out if I thought it would have been useful, right? If I thought there would have been some sort of legitimate outcome that could be, achieved by that communication. But I will say that, and again, it is a little different, a man to a woman, because of typical stereotypes, but because the spouse here, the non-direct communication, right? The spouse was a wife, so he's reaching out to Shannon, and he's using very colorful language, it sounds like. And I could see where that could be threatening, especially since if he's not clearly laying out why he's reaching out, right? If he's saying the connection is, I just accidentally came across your information here when I was preparing for my case. And I see that you're, in this position and you are married to him. And so because you're in this law school role, you might be able to do something here. And so I'm reaching out to you, one human being to another human being. And I'm going to lay out what's going on in this case. I'm going to ask that you talk to your husband and try to see, what has gone so wrong. Was he having a bad day? Is he jaded on the Constitution and people's rights? Like, what's the issue here? And is there a way for us to solve it? If he's having a conversation like that with somebody and they're like, oh my gosh, you called my husband a jerk, and they're being a Karen about it, then I don't feel sorry for Shannon, right? Again, I haven't seen the language that Lane used, so I don't know. If it's something that comes out where it sounds so abrasive and harsh and threatening without outright being a threat, but do you know what I mean? If it's something like, oh, well, this kind of bullshit is just not whatever, right? So
that's subjective.
It's subjective, right? But that's the thing. It's a two-way street. So anything that's subjective, you're going to have the person who's conveying the message and the person who's receiving the message. And then you always have to keep in mind what a reasonable person in that position would view it as. A reasonable person, right? So, and how do we determine that these days? Well, with a jury of your peers. So that's where, which is a whole nother, he didn't go that route and it's a whole nother thing now, right? But anyway, that's where we just have to be careful about not so much doing the video about the case. The case itself, well, the judge in my case, in Allegan, literally put me on a gag order. You can't do videos on this. You can't show videos of what's happening in the courtroom. He was deleting the videos. He would not allow a single person in the courtroom. And then he was deleting the videos. They were live streamed, and then he was immediately deleting them. The second our hearing was done, he would delete them. Now, he wouldn't do that with any other. He would let the other ones stay on for weeks, if not months. But my case, he didn't want to see the light of day. So as soon as my hearings were done, he would delete them off the YouTube channel. That's the kind of crazy bullshit that I was dealing with. And then he put me on a gag order saying, oh, well, you can't do XYZ, you can't share your videos. I mean, somehow Foshin ended up, I don't know, he got a hold of some of the videos and he's not under a gag order, and he shared some of the court videos. Literally, I don't think said anything. I think he just posted the videos. And I think one of the other people I just saw in the Liberty Warrior might have put a couple of the videos on his channel. I don't remember. But anyway, my point is that sharing what happens in the courtroom, if it's not, you have some rare exceptions. If it's a I don't know, a human trafficking situation or sexual abuse, child victim, things of that nature, you need to be very cognizant of the victim's rights in those situations. I assume you would agree, even from a First Amendment perspective, that there's certain kinds of cases that you just can't spread all the details all over in the public. Would you agree?
To an extent.
Right. I'm not saying the entire case has to be under, under the cover of darkness, but there's just certain things that the victims have rights to. And it needs to be a balance. So that's why I was talking about my little thing here. In every case, you have the victim and their rights. You have the prosecutor, and I'll just loosely use the term rights, but their rights, to be able to do their role, to do their job function, right? And then you have the person who's accused, and then the public. They all have rights and duties and obligations, and it's an intersection of all of that. But this is not one of those scenarios where it's some special victim case, right? It's not human trafficking. It's not a sex crime. It's not anything like that. It's not a child victim. There's nothing that makes it a special circumstance, and that I'm 99.9% positive you would agree with that wholeheartedly, I assume. Are you there?
I'm still here. I just didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, well, but do you agree? You would agree that this is not a special circumstance victim?
No, not at all.
Right.
There's something special here about these people, but not in that way.
Yes, exactly. Not in that way. In the avoiding the Constitution, they're going to be a Karen, everything. Yeah, that kind of way. But so that's the thing. If you don't have one of those special protections because of the kind of case or the kind of victim that you have, and it's just, I'll say, a traditional victim, then in that case, the public has a very important right to be part of the proceedings. That's what we have, guarantees in the 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments about. That due process along the way, as well as, the guarantees to have a public and speedy trial. And it's not just the trial, it's all those important phases of a case. The public has a right to be involved, because how can the public do its job to oversee the government if 1/3 of government functions are done in secret? If we have a judicial branch, a legislative branch, and an executive branch, and actually this would be 2/3, because it'd be the judicial branch and the executive branch by way of the prosecuting attorney and the law enforcement officials involved, that if what they're doing in this case, or in all cases, just gets to be done in secret and there's no public oversight, then we don't have a constitutional republic, because the public does not have ultimate control and authority in that sense. So it's the standard rule, the rule of thumb is that the public has every right, and sometimes even more so than the defendants. There's a lot of cases about this, that where, if the media is trying to get access to the courtroom over some sort of hearing or trial or whatever, and the defendant is the one saying, no, please keep the media out, there has to be a legitimate reason, and you have to see the judge weighing the rights of the defendant and the rights of the public to have access to those proceedings. So here, the rights of the public and the rights of the defendant are aligned. So that makes that cause even weightier. And so you're looking at the right of the victim. But again, if just because the underlying situation, let's assume for the sake of argument, because he did plead guilty, let's assume for the sake of argument that Lane went outside of the bounds of what was reasonable in his initial communications with the prosecutor. He still has those constitutional guarantees for how the case plays out. And the public still has every right to see every aspect of how that case is playing out. And the prosecutor still has the duty to follow all the rules of procedure and do it all above board. And actually, they have a duty as prosecutor to ensure that the defendant's rights are protected. That is their job, even as the prosecutor. So there's a lot of issues with having a case be, where they're trying to punish him for merely talking about the case. And maybe
no, I think you.
Go ahead.
I mean to interrupt you. Well, I think you just unlocked the secret to why this is all happening, why it just keeps escalating and snowballing. I mean, literally, let me back up here. In Arizona, there is, I think to this day, I believe there's still the rule that, at least in that courthouse, right, that you have, all you have to do in order to record the proceeding, particularly if you are the defendant, right, is to just make a notice, right, before the hearing, you submit something to or go notify the clerk, I am going to record this hearing. It's not, now if it's video, it's different, I believe, but if it's on your person, or it's just something sitting on the desk, nobody's even gonna know it's there. It's just a cell phone sitting there or in your pocket, and it's recording, audio only. You don't need permission. Right. So it got to the point with Landon. This started back when he was going to court hearings as his own lawyer for the criminal cases for booing at City Hall while everybody else was clapping, right? All the criminal charges came about that and everything that, revolving around that, right? Well, they would sit there for 20 minutes, the prosecutor, every day arguing, well, judge, look, we need to change the rule. Don't let him record right now. He's probably live streaming right now. And if he's not, he's going to go and he's going to play it. And we're getting phone calls later and it's bothering us and it's harassing us and they're harassing the victims. They start calling themselves the victims then, right? They're harassing the prosecutor's office, right? We're getting phone calls and we don't like it. So in order to stop that, we have to not record this. He can get a transcript later, right? Well, it got to the point where the judge got to the point where they told the prosecutor at that point, look, if you bring that up one more time, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court and you're going to go to jail because you're filibustering. Excuse me.
Yeah.
How do you say it? Filibustering. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
They're doing this every time, and it's a no every time. Mr. Myers is correct. The rule says all he has to do is notify, and that's what he's done. He's done it every time. He's just talking about if there's another crime, you go prosecute that later. That has nothing to do with this case. He can record. So they said, okay, fine. We're going to go try to the Supreme Court of Arizona. We're going to make a motion or whatever to change the rules, rewrite the rules to not allow that, right?
Okay.
And Lane was on top of that. He was talking about it, saying, look, they're trying to silence. They're doing this just literally because of me. They were literally using his case as an example, right? Well, they got defeated. That was a no, right? That was in 2024.
Okay.
Well, within the last couple of months, they've started it all over again, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're saying, look, this guy Lane right here, now they're adding in, look, he was found guilty of a crime. See, and so, I mean, this whole thing is like a political theater.
Yeah.
And they're trying to get the rule changed again. Well, Lane hasn't posted any videos in almost a year, except for a couple of videos here or there where he was out doing his mountain biking, right? Well, he heard about this case and that they're trying to sneak this in, and he starts talking about it again. Listen, guys, they're trying to sneak this in. At first I didn't notice it, but this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to change the rules again.
Right.
Well, then he says, well, you know what? Matter of fact, I'm nervous to talk right now about it because they might violate me. But he started getting back into it. He said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to file a challenge on that. And that court day is happening today for it. And matter of fact, I'm going to need your phone number here so I just got a message from Lane. I'll send him your up. I don't know if he can call from the jail, but it's just a continuing thing with them. They're trying to. So he had a court date last week. We didn't even know about it. It was the last second thing we found out. He was on his way to court that day, and this was somebody else had requested to record the proceedings that are coming up today and next month for his full hearing. They have it scheduled for like 6 hours for a trial for this probation violation, whether he goes to prison on the 11th, 10th or 11th next month.
Okay.
And somebody had made a motion to either film or audio record that hearing. And
no, wait,
I wanted to get a copy of that, and I did.
Wait, hold on. You said they filed a motion or a notice? Because before you said it
no,
was
I think
only a
somebody.
notice.
I think it was for a video. So it must have been for a video. I haven't seen it yet.
Right, but you said all you
I
had to do.
can see what's online, but it doesn't really say.
Right, but all you said before, all you said that they had to do was just provide written notice that they were going to be recording. But then you just said now that they filed a motion, which means that they're asking the court for permission. So did they file a notice or a motion?
I'm not totally sure on it.
Okay.
I know there's other people in the community that they're a little more closer, that are like in that area, that know what's going on.
Okay.
But I'm not totally sure. I'm just kind of assuming it's a video. Well, anyway, I would know more about it if I would have been able to get a copy of it, right? They want $18 for it. Hey, not a problem. I was going to do that. I contacted the court that same day and said, hey, there was a case today. I'd like a copy of that. I read your guys' rules on there. I said, well, unfortunately, we had a stenographer in the courtroom, and it's our policy that we don't release it. They have it. They said, but it's just a backup, right? And it's our court policy that we don't release our recordings. We only release those if there's no stenographer in the room. So what they're doing is they're making sure there's a stenographer in the room, because then they're saying, well, that'll be $900 for that, right? Lane just had to do that for one of his hearings. $900 for 1 hour per hour
to get the transcript
of a court hearing for a stenographer. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to back up and let people
So
know.
we're never going to know what happened in that hearing, right? Except that Lane had
Well,
come out and he
I just want
did
to
an interview and
pause.
he said that they.
I just want
Go
to
ahead.
pause for a minute so everybody can kind of catch up to speed, because I understand what you're saying, but other people might not. So the difference is asking for either an audio or visual recording of, a court hearing, right? So if the court has their own copy, either a video recording or just an audio, an MP3 file of a court hearing, then most courts then have a procedure that you can call or in writing get a copy of that recording, which is what I had to do in my Allegan County case. And I had to pay, even though I was the defendant, I had to pay to get a copy of that on DVD. But then they're saying that because there was a court reporter, stenographer, however you want to term it in different, different jurisdictions have different titles. But you had somebody who's employed by the court sitting in the courtroom. So they were taking their own shorthand notes. And what they're saying is, as long as there's somebody in there who's keeping the official record of their shorthand notes, if you ever want to do an appeal, then you not only have to get their shorthand notes, you actually don't get those at all. You actually have to file a request for a written transcript. So that is the official record of everything that was said and all exhibits that were presented and accepted by the judge, etc. Motions that were made, and the rulings on those motions, all of that. So that's part of the official transcript, and it becomes its own document. And so you have to pay the transcriptionist or stenographer or whatever they're called in that jurisdiction in order to do the work of taking their official notes and turning it into the transcript. And same thing, I've had to pay a transcriptionist, court reporter in my case in Michigan, my case down here in Ormond Beach. But both of them, I was able to get the record, an audio or visual record of the case, or the hearing, I should say. And I provided that to the court reporter, and then they took that and they were able to make the transcript that way. But I also still then had the audio or visual record of the case. But what they're saying it's Arizona, right? What they're saying in Arizona
Yes.
is that if, as long as you have the stenographer in there taking their own notes, then they're not going to publicly release the audio or visual recording, because you could just get the official transcript and pay for all of that. Now, obviously, you miss a lot by not hearing the nuances in the tone of someone's voice or seeing the facial expression with a video. So whatever, we can all agree a video is better than audio. Audio is better than just plain writing on a page. And they serve different purposes. They absolutely serve different purposes. But what I would be interested in, first of all, is what their actual court rule says, because a policy doesn't necessarily control the outcome. Sometimes, but generally speaking, a policy does not control the outcome. It's what does the court rule say? And if there is no statewide court rule in, the official court rules for the state, then there's probably a local court rule. An administrative order is how those are typically drafted or referred to as. It's a local administrative order, LAO. And so that's where they have those policies that have full force and effect as to how, what kinds of things you're allowed to have in the courtroom. Or that's probably where you see one of those things about, that you just had to file a notice that you're going to be recording in the courtroom and that kind of thing. So there has to be something in writing that's, where did they get this concept that they can stop you from obtaining access to the MP4 or MP3 file simply because there was a stenographer in the courtroom. If it is in writing, then you're stuck with it. But if not, you guys should pursue that. Like, where does that come from? And the other thing that I'm thinking is, if it's going to cost $900 just to get the transcript, I would hope that you would have some of the bigger channels that you mentioned earlier in your comments, that there's all these other channels that are interested in getting involved and doing interviews and all that. Somebody's got to be interested enough to crowdsource, get funding to pay the $900 to get the copy of the transcript. If that's truly the only thing you're allowed access to, somebody out there, I would think, or everybody, if there's more than 900 people vested in this, if everybody put in $1 frickin' dollar, you should be able to get that raised in 24 hours, I would think. Do you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people. This is a famous case, especially in the YouTube community. So anyway, those are just two thoughts that I had, but I just wanted to take a pause on that. From that, though, if you're able to get that, I think is what you were getting at, what you would have done. So hopefully it's still a what will you do, but where else were you going with that?
Well, I mean, it's not. So that case was nothing but a can I video record, right? It probably wasn't that long of a hearing, but there's an upcoming case here whether they're going to send him to prison or not over 1/30th of a second automated, Google result about that he didn't even click on,
right?
Just as he was typing the word lawsuit while on live, right? So I think that one, it may come to that if what just happened, and we're going to see what's going to happen tonight, if that's going to repeat itself, right? So we talked to Wayne about it. He has done interviews from the jail, and he just did one last night talking in great detail the allegations that's being made against him right now. He mentioned that he got in an argument with the judge about this, right? And it got, look, listen, Judge, I've been through this before in this county. There's a stenographer sitting over there. So what's going to happen is when somebody calls or gets online and they're trying to request this through the appropriate channels, try to pay the fee, $20 for the audio recording of it, they're going to say, we can't give that to you because there's a stenographer. And the judge, apparently, according to Lane, he said that the judge said, no, I'll make sure it's available, right? I'll make sure that is available. Look, we would rather have our recorder here rather than somebody sitting in the gallery that might be live streaming. I don't know how somebody in the gallery with a cell phone is going to interrupt anything. There's not even a jury there. If there was an issue, they would just escort them out, right? But regardless, everybody was in agreement. It sounded like the prosecutor even got up and said, yeah, I'm okay with that. I'd rather have the court, the court's own official microphones that are sitting on the desk in front of everybody anyway, be the official, they can get a copy of that. And with that, the court has control over if somebody's personal information, a cell phone number or something like that, personal information comes out, they can edit that out before it gets released. So there shouldn't be a problem. Everybody was okay with that and just said, I'll make sure. And he again pointed, look, there's a stenographer there though. They're going to refuse to give it out. And judge said, no, it'll be available. It's not available. Yeah. And I'm calling. I don't know where to go at this point, but I'm going to keep pushing the issue because if it's going to happen for a very petty, just hey, whether we can video record the hearing or not, just a simple little a 15-minute media hearing, what's going to happen during the 5-hour trial phase?
Exactly.
Is the same thing going to happen?
Yeah. So I would definitely look at what the court rules are because I know in Michigan, if you're a member of the media and you want to get access to a court hearing and you're not actually a party to the case, the general rule of thumb is if you're not a party to a case, then you don't get to file a motion in a case, right? Unless it's a motion to intervene. So different jurisdictions do it a little bit differently, but there should be some sort of mechanism that you can file a motion. It might actually be considered a motion to intervene just for the sole purpose of obtaining access to the records of the case. But I would go ahead and lay out that to the judge, in a motion so that it goes directly to that judge, that this is what was said and promised, whatever, and yet we are being prohibited from obtaining access to that recording. So we still want we still want that recording, number one. Number two, there's this hearing coming up, and now it looks like, based on the precedent of this first hearing, that the even more important hearing, we're going to be precluded from seeing what's happening and transpiring in that court. And that's a huge problem. And so I would figure out what, you just read the court rules and start with the court rules is what I would do. And figure out what, and the state constitution, there's there's got to be something that's about, I was just looking at the Florida state constitution again today, and the parts of it talking about people have the right to access, government documents and things like that. And the parts specifically talking about the, judicial proceedings. So I would look at the state constitution and definitely the state court rules and try to figure out what in there. And I would see if that particular jurisdiction, like if it's the 51st District Court in Arizona, look at what the 51st District Court has on their website. Look at their, do they have local administrative rules? Do they have sample motions or documents or things? Because sometimes it's just a matter of you have to go on their website and you get the form that they want you to fill out and you make the request that way, and that kind of generates something that, it starts a process that it goes to a different person. It goes to the person it's really supposed to be going to, and it could be as simple as that. So I would strongly recommend going to the local court website, the state court website, reading the state court rules and the state constitution to address that issue. And I would do it obviously extremely quickly, because you do have to give them time to have turnaround and respond to you before the hearing.
And I can do that as an outside party.
Well, that's where you'd have to look at what the court rules say. I don't know, but if you're,
Right.
It's possible they might have a provision that's just general public having access to, court proceedings, and there's a way for you to utilize that right as a member of the general public. Otherwise, sometimes media have more special protections or have a specific step that they can take. And then if not, then, there's generally some way in, some procedural thing that you can do to, here's what I guess what I'm getting at is they're gatekeepers. And so it's possible that the judge himself has absolutely no idea that the requests have been made, that the requests have been denied, that all these concerns are happening. That's very possible. Especially from what you've been describing, it sounds like the judge has been, it's the prosecutor's office that was causing a lot of these problems with the proceedings and trying to make it inherently unfair and shut the First Amendment down. But it sounds like, based on what you're saying, that the judge was actually trying to do the right thing and ensure the First Amendment rights remain protected. So I don't know. If it were me, I would make sure that I did whatever I could, followed whatever steps I could to get a motion in front of an emergency motion in front of the judge. And then you'd have to look at what that looks like in terms of, can you do it yourself? Do you have to have somebody special? Do you, I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of those questions.
I'll look into it.
So I would love to know how it plays out. And, if there's anything, I really don't know exactly in what way I could be helpful to him, but if he, just tell him this, if you have the opportunity to do so. If he ever wanted to think out loud and, I don't have the software to go live on 2 different channels, but I could somehow bring him on my channel and he can have the video and do it if he wants. At that point, he can bring up anything he wants and then, be as careful as he wants or doesn't want to be, I guess, if that makes sense. And I can just give him my general, because obviously I'm not an Arizona licensed attorney, but I can give him my general guidance and some things to think about, to just kind of give him some different ideas about which way to go and reality test some kinds of things. And it's just an option. If he wants to do that, we can connect, and do it video style. And maybe even people in the comments would have, questions or comments that would help us just try to think all the issues through a little bit more. You know what I mean? Kind of refine what some of the arguments need to be. So.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you. I just got a message from him as we were talking. It looks like he's going to be on his way to court right now, and his court is going to be the next time that you have a live stream as well. So, but in the meantime, at some point, I know you're pretty busy. Looks like the 11th is 2 weeks from now, and that's when his hearing is. You know, he had recently done one where he a live stream where he was calling his local congressman, and he went on about his entire story from start to finish. And in that manner, you know, I think it really frustrated the government there. That's like, man, he's talking about his case. We told him he's not allowed to talk about his case, so we're going to send him to prison. Well, how are they going to go in front of a judge if they want to send him to prison because he was talking to his congressman? He happened to be on the live while he was doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It starts getting like, this is really what this case is all about, is they just want to shut him up.
Yeah.
They don't want him to talk about the criminal case. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to talk about it. I don't see what the big deal is.
Right. And that's the thing, is that's where you have the intersection of some of these things. The problem that I have is that he did make a guilty plea, and I haven't seen the plea, so maybe I did, but with cancer, it's obviously my brain's just I'm not remembering those kinds of details. I don't recall ever seeing what the guilty plea was, specifically what he was pleading to, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, what he was charged with was some form of harassment of Shannon. And so pleading guilty involved some sort of harassment of Shannon. So to that extent, that kind of precludes some of his arguments. And it also sets the basis of what reasonable conditions of probation look like. So for example, if you are charged with DWI or DUI, OWI, whatever your jurisdiction calls it, but driving while intoxicated, if you are charged with that kind of an offense, and you maybe you serve 30 days in jail and then you get to do the rest on probation, whatever. One of your terms of probation is going to be that you can't drink alcohol throughout your whole probationary period, and that you'll probably have to have random testing to make sure that that goal, that objective is being achieved. Same thing for if it's a domestic violence case, you're going to be, given conditions that are about doing anger management classes or, healthy relationship conflict resolution techniques or things like that, right? If it's if you're abusing your kids, you're going to be court ordered to do some sort of parenting classes. You see where I'm going with that? That the conditions of probation are supposed to be tied to what the offense is. So, if you're charged with stealing your neighbor's lawnmower, there probably shouldn't be conditions about you're not allowed to drink beer on the weekends kind of thing, right? Because it has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. So here, though, if he pled guilty to some sort of charge that relates to harassing this individual, I could see how the judge might be trying to craft a probationary order that has terms that otherwise seem to implicate First Amendment protections, because it appears, based on the facts before the judge, that he pled guilty to doing something that abused the rights normally protected under the First Amendment. So the judge is trying to rein back some of that in to say, okay, well, we don't want you to just hide behind the First Amendment and continue to, violate the same laws or, whatever. There is now a victim in the case because there's been a guilty plea. I mean, there's facts that are cemented on the record. And that's not, as my understanding, he didn't even appeal that. He's just fighting the conditions of probation, not actually appealing, the underlying outcome of the case. So anyway, that just makes it a little bit more complicated, I guess is what I'm saying. That if it were the situation where he was fighting it all the way, then it just makes it a little bit easier to maintain some of, the rest of the arguments. So he's kind of got to narrow down what the arguments are based on the exact statutes that he was, pleading guilty to and what that entails. So I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. But I would be glad to, and it doesn't have to be on, I don't have my calendar right in front of me right now, but if he wanted to do something like next Tuesday, even though I'm not normally doing a live stream, we could do something where, it's a special time that we're devoting to be able to talk about some of these issues and see what we could do. But just, yeah, if you want to pass the message along to him, and I can help where I can.
So I was going to respond to that, but I just got a message from him. I guess he hadn't left for yet. I just asked him if he's available now. I don't know how long you'll be to be on. Otherwise, I know this phone number you have here is like a voice over IP, and not when you're not live, it doesn't work. I do believe I have an email for you though. I can reference that.
Yeah, and my my main office number, if he wants to set up a time to try to do something like this, you can give him my main office number. That's 616-303-0033. It's just one digit off from the call-in number.
Will do.
So yeah, because that would be more just setting up something special. I just want to reiterate to anybody who hears that phone number being shared now, if you call or text and you've got questions that you're trying to get my legal advice on through there, I'm just going to tell you to call into my live show, because this is the time I have dedicated to helping people for that. But in this situation, I'm trying to get in contact with somebody who's got some contact limitations by virtue of being in jail, and trying to get a time set up so that we can get these kinds of questions answered. So anyway, different situation. But yes, you could pass that along to him. And Foshin has my contact information too, but that's the best number for him to reach out to me and just tell me who he is, because I obviously wouldn't know how he's reaching me or what the number is or who it is, but I would love to help. So do you think round us out for the days in terms of those topics? Because I did see there were a few other people that had put some questions in the live chat. So
no, I definitely appreciate your time, Catherine, as always.
Okay, well,
and
thank
Lane
you.
was asking me sometime last week. I was talking about you, and he said he was asking me how you were doing.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. Well, if you want to share, I don't know if you were on earlier at the beginning when I gave my update about surgery and all that, if you want to share that with him. And I don't even remember if I said this part. I think I did, but they got clear margins. So I don't, as far as I know, I don't have to they're not recommending like chemo or radiation or anything like that. It's just, at least I haven't been told that at this point, because they were able to get clear margins. I just have sutures in the back of my head for another week. And other than that, it's just healing from that surgery. So going in the right direction. I'm going to try to stop collecting different cancers though, because I'm only 43 and 2 is already enough. And every time I get a new cancer, my husband gets a new golden retriever, and I have a small house. I can't fit any more golden retrievers in here. So, but anyway, all right. Well, thank you. I appreciate.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna throw those back on, and sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to turn my air conditioning back on, because it is hot in here. So, we've talked about a lot, but I just wanted to scroll through, let's see, there were some questions. Okay, so some of them that were saying question, it was just Blue Line Transparency trying to get my attention to give me some more information, but I was stuck on the initial one that he gave. So, okay. Looks like that. But then there was another one. What sanctions can a magistrate judge in federal court impose on defense counsel for a defendant destroying evidence in an ongoing litigation? Ooh. So that's interesting. And let's see. I'm just making myself a note. Okay. So as far as sanctions, there should be sanctions for a defendant who's destroying evidence. It's not guaranteed, but generally speaking, court rules would provide that that's something that's sanctionable. As far as defense counsel being responsible instead of the actual defendant, that really depends. It's a fact-intensive conversation, because when I was representing people, for example, when I was a public defender, one of the first things I would tell to my client is, listen, I need to know any and all facts about this, anything that even remotely relates to it that the prosecutor might use against us. Or even when I did divorce cases, I would tell my client, listen, this is an ugly custody case that we're going to be looking at. You know, this divorce is gearing up to be very convoluted, complicated, and just ugly. I need to know everything that is possibly ever going to see the light of day, even if you think your spouse doesn't know about it. I need to know about it because I cannot be prepared to fight against it if the first time I'm hearing it is when somebody's on the stand and we're in the midst of a trial, and I'm like, oh, wow, that sucks for you. And I don't have anything to do. Like, I can try to come up with some questions off the top of my head, but if I don't know the answer to those questions, I'm not necessarily doing a great job if I'm going to ask the question. Anyway, so it's not, my point is that when I was an attorney doing divorces or doing defense work in the criminal setting, my clients would often neglect to tell me things, like intentionally choose to not tell me things, going, well, I didn't know, I didn't really think I needed to tell you about that. When it'd be stuff that was like really obvious. Once it came out, I was like, come on, why would you hide that from me? Well, I was really embarrassed and I just didn't want people to know. And I'm like, okay, I'm not people, because I'm not allowed, as your attorney, I'm not allowed to disclose your private information to other people. I can file pleadings on your behalf. I can, use the information to put together a line of questioning of witnesses, things like that. But I'm not going to be able to just, pull up a bullhorn and scream out loud to the public all your private affairs. That's not how it works. So if people didn't tell me things, even after they happened, they certainly, if they didn't tell me things before something happened, like when I was a public defender, I didn't have people tell me that they were going to commit crimes. And if they did, I would say, let's not do that, because then we'll be right back here and I won't have a way to defend you, because you're intentionally choosing to commit a crime here. And it's not just a malum prohibitum crime, but it's, at any rate. So if the attorney, my point in all that is to say, if the question is, what sanctions can a magistrate judge in the federal court impose on defense counsel for a defendant destroying evidence in ongoing litigation? So if the attorney did not have any idea that their client was going to be destroying information, even if they found out afterwards, if it's gone, if it's documents and they have burned them and they're gone and there's nothing they could do about it, or it's evidence that they tied to a brick and threw it in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, I mean, if it's not coming back and there's nothing the attorney can do about it, then why would you want to get sanctions on the attorney? If the attorney didn't do anything wrong, that's the wrong person to sanction. So the way it's supposed to work is that sanctions are used to penalize the wrongdoer, the one who's abusing the system in some way, and not even generally to use it as a deterrent for other people. Its sanctions are generally meant to just bring apart, making somebody whole that was harmed by an abuse of the court system in some way, and or to punish the person who abused the system in some way. So, I don't know. I would say, punishing the defendant is the best course of action, and it looks differently in different situations. Now, if you said, a plaintiff, because this is just an easier example, if it was the plaintiff who in a civil case was caught destroying evidence and now that evidence is gone, I would say that a good sanction would be to have the case dismissed with prejudice so that their claim against the defendant is just thrown right out of court. They have no chance to revive it, and sorry, FAFO. But, you know, with the defendant, there's a little bit different. I don't know what kind of case it is. I don't know if it's something that would be, you know, if it's even the kind of case you can rightfully just enter a default judgment against the defendant. I don't know what stage of the case there is. There's a lot that I don't know there. So, okay, so, so I am seeing that, unless I'm losing my mind, Direct D, somebody is saying, has been arrested, facing 2 felonies and 3 misdemeanors. So that's not good. I have it as a recurring reminder in my calendar to touch base with him because we were going to do a joint show like twice a month and talk about various legal issues. So that's interesting. I'm going to make myself a note to follow up with him. Let's see. So there's a lot of conversation back and forth. I'm not going to read all that. I'm just trying to jump to, okay, there's a question. Without knowing the discovery, how can a person decide whether to hire an attorney or proceed pro se during arraignment? I won my pro per case, but I was damn lucky, but educated fool. So, yeah, if you don't know what evidence there is against you, it may, and you asked this question half an hour ago, so hopefully you're still on here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your YouTube handle there, so I might not quite get it right. But anyway, the question again, without knowing the discovery, how can a person decide whether to hire an attorney or proceed pro se on their own during arraignment? I won my pro per case when somebody was pro se doing it on their own, but I was damn lucky, but an educated fool. Okay, so that's the question, and it seems like they're asking for somebody else. And yes, you should be able to have discovery. In some jurisdictions, it comes kind of like right away. It happens differently, right? So in some jurisdictions, when I was the public defender, as soon as I got appointed, which was after the arraignment, but before the pretrial conference, I would get appointed somewhere in between there, and the prosecuting attorney's office would immediately send me discovery. It was just how we did things in the counties that I was a part of. And you know, I honestly don't remember how it worked when I was serving as a private attorney, because more often than not, I was the public defender and not hired as private counsel. But anyway, they knew because they would get the court order that I was appointed. And so that would be, I guess, the same as somebody filing an appearance as a private attorney. So that's their sign to kind of kick things off, and they don't even make a discovery request necessary. However, when I was an attorney and represented myself in the Allegan County case, I had to actually make a discovery request because they gave me absolutely nothing. And I had to file a motion to compel discovery because they still didn't give me what was in the discovery. And then we had to have 2 hearings on the motion to compel. And they still never gave me everything. So anyway, it was disgusting. It was a whole abuse of the process and everything. Having that information before arraignment, quite frankly, is just often it's not likely that the one who's actually the prosecuting attorney in the case has all the information in front of them. So they can't really be expected to provide all the discovery to somebody at that stage. That's why discovery comes after arraignment, typically speaking. So they have to have time for the case to develop and, you know, for information to make its way from whatever sources. somewhere else in their office or the law enforcement agency's office or whatever over to them, etc. But as far as, how do you know if you want, either way, I would suggest that you have an attorney with you at arraignment unless you are really comfortable with knowing your rights and knowing what the laws are, knowing every single aspect of the laws that you're charged with violating. I would look up ahead of time what the criminal jury instructions are, what the model jury instructions are for that particular offense. Even though you're just talking about the arraignment, I would know essentially because the jury instructions will break down the crime into its different elements. So that's why I would pull the model criminal jury instructions out ahead of time so that it just breaks it down visually for you, typically, in a more understandable way. But I mean, you really want to have an attorney, a good attorney. I mean, a craptastic attorney who only normally does tax law, he's not going to help you any more than you would help yourself. If, you got to have somebody who's knowledgeable. And if you can't find somebody who's knowledgeable and who you can trust, then you better do your homework. I mean, you really better do your homework. But having that before arraignment, after arraignment, I mean, it just depends on what normally happens in the arraignment in your jurisdiction. Even if you know all the rules, during my arraignment, I knew the rules. I came ready to go with my motion to dismiss, and the judge would not hear it. I had a request for different ADA accommodations to be made because it was in the height of all the COVID restrictions, and I have a hearing disability, and so the masks and being behind the plastic walls and all that other BS, it was like I can't adequately participate in my own defense if I can't hear what the hell's going on here. So I had some specific motions, and the judge who did the arraignment shut me down on literally all of that. I was like, well, that's not what we're here for. That's not what I have in front of me. And I'm like, it actually is what you have in front of you. And I'm an attorney, and I was an attorney in the state of Michigan at the time, in a Michigan court. And I'm like, I know what the court rules are. I've been a public defender in this exact same state, and yet here we are. So even when you have an attorney, it doesn't mean the arraignment's going to go smoothly or that the arraignment is actually still going to accomplish all the things that you want to set out to have happen in an arraignment. So anyway, but just food for thought. I guess I don't have a straightforward answer for you on that. And I almost skipped another question here. What's your take on Samuel being charged for giving Customs and Border Patrol agent at an airport a duress code causing his phone to wipe? The constitutionality or the lack thereof? I don't know anything about that case. It looks like that name has been, talked about a little bit in the comments there. Honestly, that I've never heard of it. I don't know the situation in general. I can tell you that if you don't have a case, if there's no case pending, right? If there's no court case, and so you're under no duty to preserve evidence for the trial, then if you are destroying your own property, I don't see why they, what they're charging you with. What exactly are the charges? Again, if you already have a case pending and there's orders in place, like with the other person that was asking about a civil case, you have somebody purposely destroying evidence in a trial or before the trial, that's not okay. But that doesn't sound like what's happening here. And so was there even probable cause for the Border Patrol agent to look in the phone? Because there's Fourth Amendment protections there. Was there a warrant to search the phone? If not, what were the exigent circumstances requiring the phone to be searched before, a warrant could be obtained? I don't know anything about the situation, but those are all things I would be thinking about, right? And I think that's it. Okay, so Six Oaks Farm is confirming what I had just found out in a different comment, that Direct D is facing 3 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, all domestic violence related. He is he is poison. I was reading that all wrong. I was reading that as he's in prison, and I'm like, what? That doesn't have gun. Okay. He is poison and changed his position on 1A 180 degrees, and he will now likely have to face the 5 or so active warrants. Okay. Wow. Okay. So that sucks. I haven't talked to DirectD since I think since I first got the cancer diagnosis almost 2 years ago. So I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about his warrants. I don't know anything about domestic abuse charges. I don't know him changing his stance on First Amendment issues. I don't know any of that. Some girl he moved in had to be extracted by the sheriff's office in order to leave there. Then they had to go back with her to get her belongings and her cat. She filed a TPO weeks ago. Blue Line Transparency says, I've long disagreed with DirectD on some issues. However, I love free speech enough to defend the importance of him being able to speak. I presume innocence on all of his charges. Our country, the government entity that exists, presumes his innocence, as is the same with everybody else that we've been talking about. All of these cases, every defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty with every single element of the offense proven to be true beyond a reasonable doubt. That's how you arrive at the fact. I just noticed somebody's comment. The golden retrievers are more fun than cancer. Yes, they definitely are more fun. It's just we don't have enough room and I don't have enough patience. If any of you are my personal friends on Facebook, on my personal profile, you'll see a picture I posted this morning because last night and this morning, multiple times this morning, my dog was doing various different poses in my closet area. Like totally touching my clothes, smushing his face and his head and his body and his butt all over my clean clothes. And I'm like, dude, I need to wear those. Let's not do that. Anyway, I love my animals, but you know, it is what it is. I only want to. Okay, I do find it funny that Liberty Warrior, because he's has admin privileges on this page, he's blue, but my own comments were not blue because I'm apparently logged into the wrong account, even though I thought I gave the other account admin privileges. But anyway, so okay, it was a Customs and Border Patrol fishing trip coming back into the country. Just wanted to go through his phone. Okay. So it's been over 2 hours, guys. I do have a child who's claiming that she's starving because, you know, she's 12 and she last ate about 3 hours ago. So I should probably feed her. But in general, First Amendment, one of the best, it's the First Amendment for a reason, right? And there's a lot in there. If you don't know all the elements of the First Amendment, make sure that you study that sucker inside and outside, backwards and forwards, and you know what's in there, as well as in your own state constitution, wherever those protections are. I believe virtually every state has each of those 5 elements somewhere in their state constitutions. They're usually not all together, though, like they are lumped together in the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. But keep in mind that it is a healthy balance that we have to strive, because our rights have, an overlappingness with other people's rights. And so our right to say whatever we feel like is, that has to be reeled in when it comes to saying things that truly are of a harassing, threatening, menacing nature to somebody else. So, it's not about protecting all the Karens in the world, but it's about having a space where we each have the right to free speech, but we also each have the right to just simply live our own lives without being targeted and harassed and, abused in some way. So it's not easy to find that line sometimes, especially when the government is involved in enforcing what that line is, because the government doesn't know, what 2 + 2 is on most days. But at any rate, make sure, if you haven't looked at it recently, read your state. My challenge to you this week is to read your state constitution's Declaration of Rights. In most states, it's the first article. Sometimes it's the second article. Sometimes the states don't have articles. A few of the states don't, their constitution's not broken into articles, and it shows up a little differently. But by and large, most states have a Declaration of Rights. Read your Declaration of Rights from your state's constitution this week. It might be long, it might be short, but how can you possibly defend your rights if you don't know what they are? So with that being said, I want to invite you to the resources that we have. Like I said, hit the subscribe button to our 2 new YouTube channels, youtube.com/@RestoreFreedomLive and youtube.com/@RestoreFreedomBrief. Again, the live channel is just when we go live, and the brief one is for all videos that are 10 minutes or less, and trying to get out from underneath the shadow banning that's been happening. So see if we can gain some traction there. So hit us up on those channels, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification button, all of the above. If you can donate, whether it's $1, $5, $100, $1,000, please hit us up at restorefreedomkh.com/donate. And of course, as always, please continue to utilize all the resources we have available for you on restorefreedomkh.com/resources. I think that is all I have for you today. So thank you so much to everyone who was joining, calling, asking questions in the comments, or just supporting in one way, shape, or form. Don't forget to hit that like button and tell a friend today about this great resource that they can utilize for free to learn more about the law, the Constitution, and the proper role of government. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button. Together, we can restore freedom.